Time to flip the switch to on. Spotlight on Vegas Business is back with Mark and Nicole.
Welcome back to Spotlight on Vegas Business, the premier business show you do not want to miss.
You don't want to miss it, especially if you're a business owner.
Absolutely, because we have so many great guests that pertain to small to medium-sized businesses in the Las Vegas Valley.
We do.
So our first guest is George Bales from Payan and Payan. Welcome, George.
Nice to meet you on the radio. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Nicole, for inviting me to come on.
Well, one of the reasons we wanted to invite you on was recently the Nevada legislator passed one of the biggest tax hikes in history, I believe. I just wanted to know more about it, and if you can just give us some information about what they've done and what we can do to protect ourselves.
Yeah, basically, on about 2 weeks ago, the not only the Assembly but also the Nevada State Senate voted on and approved the largest tax increase in Nevada State history, and Governor Sandoval has already signed it into place. But what happens is it comes effective on 1 July, and so you're going to see the increase for business licenses for corporations going from $200 to $500 a year. Now, normal business entities like partnerships and LLCs, their fee will stay at $200, but the corporations will increase. And on top of that, we're going to see a payroll tax increase from 1.17% to 1.475%. And for the first $200,000 that a company has in wages. Now that may seem like a little bit, but it's really gonna hit the people who have a lot of payroll, and you're gonna see a lot of tax increases on those. The commerce tax, which basically affects businesses that make over $4 million gross in Nevada a year, that is also come into play. That one is going to be, we're expecting that it's going to hit those businesses a little bit hard because it's not going to be a provision to where you can deduct your net. It's going to be based on your gross. Wow. Now, this is similar to question 3 that we voted down no back in November, which was $1 million, but it's $4 million. So it's a little bit different than question 3 because people have asked, they're like, what's the difference between this one and kind of what we voted down in November? They basically went back to the legislator and tried to make it a little bit better and tried to, I think, avoid affecting small businesses. So
they just raised the watermark up a little bit to not have the voters that overwhelmingly said no. Keep our state a state that is going to attract businesses to our state. To help our economy, we need to have more than just big casinos on the strip that are driving our economy. We need small to medium-sized businesses, and this is affecting a lot of businesses because it's not, as you mentioned, it's not on the profit, it's on all of your revenue that's coming in.
Yeah, and $4 million sales, okay, it's granted it is a substantial amount, but that doesn't mean profits. I mean, a company that has $4 million in sales may have the equivalent, if not more, in debt. Maybe they're not even operating at a profit at that stage.
Yeah,
it depends on the company.
Yeah, the net is going to be is not going to be calculated in this, so that will be interesting to see come 1 July what else we hear from the legislator about this, because unfortunately some of this stuff the actual offices that are going to be in charge of collecting these taxes do not actually have all the information or are not contacting enough with it, because I think they're still going through and trying to sort out the details. So we will probably hear more towards the end of the month about how they're going to collect this, because included in this is a payroll tax increase and a modified business tax rate increase. And so we're going to see that, and then also the sunset taxes, where a couple of years ago when our state was in trouble for paying their debt, they came out with some taxes where they changed the depreciation on your personal property taxes. So basically, years ago they would accelerate how quickly your your personal property tax went down when you registered your car. They slowed that down to increase the taxes, and now that's been made permanent, along with a sales tax increase that was done a couple of years ago is made permanent part of this bill.
So are both of those tax increases then going to affect all of the consumers, not just business owners? Is the depreciation something that we all pay for our car registration fees?
We've had it for a couple of years. We just now made it permanent, because for every year they were just kind of, like band-aiding it. Let's extend it for a few more years. And then part of this was the legislature said, hey, let's just make this increase permanent. So we've already been paying it for a little bit. It's just now it's not going to be going away.
Okay.
Did any of us really expect it to go away?
Not really.
Are there any such thing as a temporary tax? anyone that is listening in, if you'd like to call in, if you have any comments, if you have any questions for George, you've got some free CPA consultation you can have right now that's not going to cost you an hourly rate. Call in at 702-221-7283. Yeah, I'm not surprised at all that this temporary tax is now something that we're getting
I want to talk
stuck
a bit
with.
about the payroll tax as well. I mean, to me, taxing on having employees is actually counterproductive to actually encouraging employment. Would you agree with that? Or how does that affect?
I wouldn't wage into that, but I will say that I will expect that most people won't really feel this effect till they do the third quarter tax filing for the state, because as it is effective 1 July, that means when you file your second quarter payroll taxes, you won't see that increase. But when you do your third quarter payroll taxes, you might see a slight increase for that and for the modified business tax. So I would just warn business owners to be somewhat prepared for that, depending on how much payroll they have, to be prepared for that pinch. One last thing I wanted to touch on was that I forgot to mention was the cigarette tax. And now we're adding basically a pack of cigarettes is going to have an additional tax of $1. And I know a lot of smokers have been very adamant that they're not happy with this. I just...
A whole $1, huh?
Yeah.
How much does a pack of cigarettes cost now? Anyone in the house a smoker?
I'm not sure what percentage that would be on an average packet. But
I don't know. I know that it's
it does
awfully
sound
darn
a lot.
expensive to kill yourself slowly.
Yeah,
But
in some respects, I don't have too much of a problem with cigarette tax.
I do. It's not the amount. Look, I'm not a smoker, and I don't know a lot of smokers, and all you smokers out there, like I said, I love you, I wish you well. I'd love to put you in touch with some of my health providers to stop smoking, but it's another tax that the problem is not revenue being generated. It's the problem is the folks that are taking the money that we're giving them in whatever tax and blowing it on a bunch of nonsense.
This is what I would refer to, it's not as a quote, and I stress the quotes, sin tax, where it's something that they don't need to do, and it's actually better for their health if they don't do it.
Oh,
but if they choose to do it...
They're going to tax your chocolate bars next, Mark, if you keep talking like that.
Chocolate bars are healthy. They're full of milk and dairy products and all sorts of good nuts and all sorts of good stuff.
One thing I would add in, Mark, is they have, as the legislator has came out and said what they're going to tax and how they're going to raise this $1 billion, we haven't actually seen any breakdown yet of where this is going to go. And so that's going to be the other thing that a lot of voters have been asking about is, yes, vote on this tax increase, but we now want to see how it's going to go to our schools. And now the governor has been going around and putting some of this money out there, and we've been kind of seeing in the last few days and weeks where he's going to be spending money. But this is something that the other people have been concerned about. They're like, well, if you're going to tax us, we want to see the money come in, and then we want to see it come out. So that might be something that people want to keep an eye out for in the news, is trying to get an idea of where that money's going, because I know a lot of people were upset about the increase, but then you're also like, where's that money going?
Yeah, I'm all for raising money for schools and all that, because my son's on the system, and Nicole's kids are in the system as well, and I'm all for giving the money to the schools, but I don't want the money being wasted, because apparently there's a lot of wastage in government. That goes without saying. I think we all know that. And also it's going for education, it's going for education, it's going for education. But what evidence do we have that it actually is going to education?
And it's the same thing. Even when I hear a politician say what it's going to be intended for, what it's earmarked for, it goes into these general funds, these coffers, and it doesn't actually make it to the kids. So I'm not happy about this. If you want to weigh in, 702-221-7283. So tell me, George, what does a business person do in order to prepare themselves for this? Legislation is not... Do you enjoy reading it? I have a feeling that you might be one of those weirdos out there that actually enjoy pouring through these bills and the numbers and figuring out what it is. Ergo, you're a CPA. But what do we do as a normal person?
The general thing that we suggest our clients do is to first kind of figure out what exactly how it will affect them. A lot of times we will send out newsletters to our clients trying to give them a heads up, hey, this has come out and what we're going through. It does take us a little bit of time, though, because when we heard about this passing, the first thing we have to do is we have to go through, read the bill, read whatever other people have analyzed about the bill, and then we also go through and try to contact the government agencies that are going to be collecting these fees to kind of get an idea of how to estimate these fees for our clients. And the best thing for people to do is probably to just try and get an idea of what their payroll will be and calculate them at these new rates, and whether or not they have a CPA or an enrolled agent or whoever does their payroll, they might be able to help them. Now, I know that they're probably not going to get much information until we kind of get into the thick of it. That's the kind of the bad thing about the government. Sometimes we hear about these bills passing, like for instance this year we had the Affordable Care Act became effective, and some people were affected by it that went through the healthcare exchange, and it was only after we had started the year, when the government had given us more guidance on how to record these things and what people should be expecting, that we were able to actually help people understand what was going to happen. Because when the bill comes out, there's usually an agency that's in charge of interpreting that and figuring out how to go through and actually implement those taxes or make sure those things are collected, and it can be different, like from what the legislator initially passes. So it's one of those things that's kind of why we spend so much time doing this. Is we spend a lot of time trying to research and keep on top of this for our clients. And I think every CPA or enrolled agent or tax preparer or even a payroll company does that. But it does take a lot of time to kind of get an idea of what they're going to do, because the first thing we do is we read it and we anticipate what the office is going to do, and then we call the office to figure out what they're actually going to do, because you can anticipate it, but if they decide to act differently than what the bill says it will do, it can be a little different. I think in this it's a little bit clear cut because we're expecting these increases, but I think you're going to find a lot of people are going to be have a hard time figuring it out till probably when they actually owe it.
So how early do they need to get involved then in getting prepared with this? Contacting their CPA or their tax advisor, or just, I don't know, trying to muddle through it themselves? Are you able, should they be calling you now, setting appointments with you now? Is it another month from now? When is this going to take effect, and how soon do you start preparing?
Well, for us right now, I think we would ask for our clients to email us just to give us time to respond to them and put them on a list where once we're totally aware and able to accurately advise them, we can contact them. Because the problem is, if you give somebody information and it changes afterwards, or if the government or the legislator decides, hey, we're going to delay this or whatnot, it can confuse people. Because to be completely honest, most people don't think about their taxes until they're due. I mean, most people that have a W-2, they don't think about it till January or February when they start submitting their stuff to their accountant. And we try and avoid that. We try and advise our clients beforehand. I mean, that's one of the biggest things we do, is we try and send out letters when we know things are coming down, so this way that at least they're aware of them, so this way they're not caught with a sucker punch when they go to file their taxes. But on the same point, I think the best thing you can do is contact your accountant, talk to them, and ask them when then they can expect to hear something. Because like I said, it's still kind of trying to get the ideas from the legislator or from these offices that are going to be collecting these taxes, how they're going to do it. And like I said, it's going to probably not going to be that big of a thing for small companies with payroll and whatnot, but they still should be expecting a slight increase and on their taxes.
Okay. So that's great information about the new taxes that are coming out. First of all, is there anything you'd like to add before I get into your business itself, your Payan and Payan?
No, like I said, I think for everybody should be at least following the news. If not, if you can't watch the news, I highly suggest trying to keep an idea on the legislator just on the internet. You can search these tax increases and you can see a breakdown. And the Associated Press did a great job right after it was voted in, breaking down in layman's terms, like line by line, what people can expect. And then I think if you keep on point with those subjects, you can kind of get an idea of what you're expecting. So this way you're not counting on somebody else to keep you informed, because sometimes you can get caught in the trap of missing an email, or actually or having an email blocked as spam, or somebody maybe not answering the phone call from somebody, and you might miss this information. So like I said, I would suggest anybody, when the legislature's in session, either keep an ear out every so often or whatnot. But I think this one has been pretty prevalent in the news. I know Fox 5 and a few others have gone through and actually kind of spelled out what's going on.
Okay.
So if your CPA has not informed you yet of these things happening, George, is that an indicator that maybe they should take a look at that relationship that CPA has for them? maybe give Payment and Payment a call. Tell me what's standard operating procedure for a good CPA firm like Payment and Payment, like you.
Payan and Payan, our main effort has been, we try to send letters out to our clients and whatnot, and we will try to advise them. But if you're not in an actual ongoing relationship with your CPA, you probably should evaluate, if you are a business owner, what services you're getting, because sometimes people are getting the service they want. I mean, if you're running a business that maybe has a small business or whatnot, you may not get information from your CPA as much as you need to. But on the other hand, you might be getting too much. So you just kind of, like I said, we try to make sure that business owners are not overpaying their CPA versus what they're saving in taxes. And so while you might expect your CPA to email you all the time, just remember, if you're not on their radar for this being an effect, that's something that might affect you, they may not contact you. So like I said, it might be useful for you to be somewhat proactive and try and contact them.
So that was something that I found interesting about your presentation that you did for the lead team at our West Valley chapter last Tuesday. You talked about when people come in to you looking for a CPA, that you and the other people that you work with have actually advised sometimes that this company is not at a level of income, or not at there's not a need for them to come in and use the CPA services, because you wouldn't be saving them enough money to invest in a CPA, and you send them elsewhere. And I find that to be quite impressive, actually, that your company, Payan and Payan, has the integrity to not just grind another customer in the door and get them to write a check, whether they maybe should or shouldn't. So can you tell me a little bit more about that, the philosophy of your company, your philosophy, and what you do as opposed to maybe other firms out there?
I think the first thing we'd like to do is when we have new clients come in, we like to substantiate whether or not we can provide them adequate service. Because sometimes people come in with issues that we may be able to provide a service for, but the fee they're going to pay is going to be more than the benefit they're going to receive. And I think that's quintessentially one of the most important things as a public, somebody accountable by the public, is that you should make sure that you're not taking from somebody more than you can give them back. And so a lot of times we'll advise clients on whether or not we can help them, and then also advise them on what level of support we can provide for them. Because some people immediately want to jump to, well, I want to be a corporation, I want to do this, I want to do that. And to be quite honest, their income does not substantiate that. They'll end up paying more than they'll save on taxes. And so we try to do an approach where we evaluate what they need versus what we can provide them, and then sometimes we tell them, hey, you actually want more than you need, or you actually need more than you want. And so we kind of try to make sure that we're not taking for somebody thousands of dollars when we're only saving them a couple hundred, because I mean that does no good for us. I mean, that just gives us more work that's really not worth the work that we're putting into it, and then that person at the same point is not really getting out what they needed.
You're not building a good relationship.
But on the other hand, we have had people that start off that lower level and then work their way up to needing more service, and at that point we help them out and try and advise them, whether that be making sure that they get attached to a good payroll company, making sure they have a good bookkeeper, making sure that all their needs are being met, even if we do not actually meet those needs, so this way that their business is surviving. Because to be fair, that's what's important, is that their business survives and that their business is healthy, that they're not paying out more than they're getting, and at the same point that they're not spending more time on things in the business and not building the business. Because some people, if you'll find, as small businesses, will spend more time doing things that if they outsource that, they can do a lot more.
Yes.
With shipping somebody in for doing bookkeeping or doing payroll, you'll find that their business can be more successful because they're spending less time doing administrative things and more time doing the things that actually get customers in the door and actually increase their gross revenue.
Love it. Love it. What is the contact number or the best way to reach your firm?
We're located on 7936 West Sahara Avenue. Our phone number is 702-233-9526. You can ask for me, or you can email me. My name it's George at p2cpa.com, and I'm generally able to either, if I can't get you the answer, if I can't answer the question, I'll get an answer for you on most questions, because like I said, a lot of people have questions about these things, and whether or not we can provide a service, we'll at least try to help you out and send you down the right path. So, like I said, it's at the end of the day, like I said, it's about making sure people's businesses are thriving and doing the right things and not overstating themselves and paying for things they don't need.
Okay, great. So George Bales, CPA with Payan and Payan, thank you so much for coming in and explaining to us and our listeners out there about these new massive taxes that are coming through. Information is power. We might not be able to get out of paying our taxes. Death and taxes are the only